What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Mock Draft Guy YouTube channel. And I know this week we've been rolling along with 3-round mocks, 7-round mocks. We do have a 1-round mock draft today, but we have a very, very special guest today on the channel, Ryan Fowler of Bleacher Report, the Draft Network, and a host of Commanding the Huddle podcast. Man, it is truly an honor to have you on. Thank you for coming on today, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, man, we're going to roll right into this mock draft here. If we feel like there are trades to make, we're going to make them. If not, I feel like we'll just roll with what we got. And contrary to what we usually do on this channel, I always give the guest the number 1 overall pick. I will be taking the number 1 overall pick today. Super pumped about that because it's clearly a surprise what the number 1 overall pick will be. But if we roll right into it here, the Chicago Bears at number 1 overall, pretty straightforward. They traded Justin Fields. Tyson Bagent is not going to be the franchise guy. We're going Caleb Williams at number 1. And I think that's pretty clear. You don't have any qualms about that, do you?
No, not at all. I think Caleb is a special type of athlete, special type of football player. I think what separates him, I know we get so excited about the off-script plays and the ability to make all throws outside of all different platforms, arm side or way. But at the end of the day, it's just what works, right, in the NFL nowadays. And you look at that core of what they have in Chicago up front, drafting Darnell Wright last year. We're going to make some additions potentially here on the outside for Chicago in just a little bit. But I have no qualms about that. I think Caleb is a special type of football player. It's going to be excellent in Chicago for a long time.
Awesome. I love the description there. And you have your Washington Commanders at number 2. So what are you thinking here?
Yeah, look, newly minted GM Adam Peters. Look, face of the franchise. You got to get him. You got to get the position right. You know, they tried with RG3 back in 2012 with the 2nd overall pick, and of course, took Kirk Cousins in that same draft. And we can answer as far as who was better ultimately in Washington in that draft, and it was Kirk. But for me, I'm not getting cute. It is Drake May, quarterback from North Carolina. For me, there is a lot of context needed for me with Jaden Daniels. I can't throw 3 years of Arizona State out the window. I can't sit there and say, you know, if I took a Drake May and put him in LSU offense or put Drake May in a Washington offense with the surroundings that he had, I just look at Drake and his ability also to understand the difference between winning outside of structure, but also just being a quarterback and winning in the shallow to intermediate areas right away. And there's no really prospect fatigue on me when it comes to Drake May. So Drake May is the guy for the future there. They got weapons on the outside. They've added additions, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz along the offensive line. And, of course, you got Austin Eckler in the building. Not the same guy, right, that he was at the Chargers. And, of course, Brian Robinson Jr. as guys that could take the pressure a little bit off of Drake May. But he'll win inside of structure before winning outside of structure. He'd make every throw in the book. And so Drake May's the guy here at 2 for Washington.
I love that. Not to mention, I mean, you still have Scary Terry. You still have Jahan Dotson as well. Mm-hmm. So you got some pieces there on the outside. It's not like he's going to be thrown to next to nothing. But I do love it makes sense now, you know, drafting the quarterback after they traded Sam Howell. It makes sense to bring in someone like Austin Eckler. I feel like, especially for a relatively cheap deal. What was that, 2 years, like $10 million or $12 million?
Yeah, it's literally a veteran prove-it deal is really what it is. And just be a guy that's a shoulder to lean on for a young quarterback and a guy that can come in on 3rd downs if you have to. Because at the end of the day, they also have Chris Rodriguez there, who they drafted out of Kentucky just last year on day 3 as a guy that if Austin Eckler may go down or whatever happens, they have him as that RB2 potentially in that backfield behind B-Rob.
Yeah, I love the direction that they're going. And I actually said I uploaded it just started airing at the time of recording. It aired about an hour ago. I did a full 7-round mock draft this past weekend with a buddy of mine. And I did say, watch out for the Washington Commanders because, you know, they don't seem like they're going to be a laughing stock anymore. This seems like a very serious organization. They're building towards something really, really nice. And I think that they're going to surprise a lot of people this year. Within the next 3 years, for sure. I think they're going to be right back at the top of that division.
Yeah, those in the DMV would absolutely love to hear that. It's been a long time, man. It's been a long time for the Burgundy and Gold to try to work back to relevancy. But I agree with you. The job that Adam Peters has done, and now with new ownership, allowing the football people to do their football jobs is something that hasn't been able to happen in a long, long time in DC. But things are changing, hopefully for the better.
That is always key. And talking about football guys doing the football decisions here, number 3, the New England Patriots. We have been, you know, this is such an unprecedented situation for the New England Patriots because, you know, this is the first time in I don't even remember 24, 25 years that, you know, Bill Belichick is not in the building. We have Gerard Mayo as the head coach now. It's a whole different way of going. But it's funny because Gerard Mayo seems like he was trained by Bill Belichick, because the answers he gives, his mannerisms, seems very Bill Belichickian, if you will. It just seems like the Patriot way. But I feel like this franchise is going to go in a different direction here. I'm going to buy into the smoke screens for the most part with this mock draft here. At number 3 overall, I'm going to take JJ McCarthy here, especially with Drake May off the board. That was probably going to be my pick at number 3. I think that the Patriots front office really likes what JJ brings to the table in terms of him being super young, all of his intangibles, his leadership skills. I think he's going to be a little bit of a project, but this team is a project. And I mean, they didn't go out there and go super crazy in free agency either. They still have a ton of money to spend for the most part. So this seems like a team that is willing to sit back and maybe be in the basement of the AFC, hopefully as a Jet fan, maybe be in the basement of the AFC East for a year or two while they rebuild around their young franchise quarterback and build up the team around him. So I am going to go with someone who I think honestly has some of the highest upside based off of intangibles in the entire draft class. So I'm going to go with JJ McCarthy here at number 3.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with you. I have JJ McCarthy and Jaden Daniels hip to hip in this QB class. With JJ, as you mentioned, the projection is absolutely there. But you look at some of the throws he made specifically against Washington, right, in the College Football National Championship game where his front hip is facing the weak sideline of scrimmage and he's lofting that thing over the backer, running to Roman Wilson's hands. Those are throws that absolutely project to the next level. And really the surrounding core in New England is by no means, it's not top 10, 15 in the league. But Kendrick Bourne, they brought in KJ Osborne, who's a high-level wide receiver 3 in this league. And I love what I saw from Demario Douglas in
Yeah.
year 1, a small school kid out of Liberty. Now, that's not a core that's great, but you also have Ramondre Stevenson that you can hand the ball off to. And you also have Antonio Gibson as a 3-down threat and a ball carrier, as a guy that, look, he's got to hold on to the ball, first off, forever, ever project him as an early down guy in this offense. But the core of skill players there, especially bringing back Mike Onwenu to protect his arm
It's
side,
huge. Yeah.
it's huge for this offense. So the core of guys around him, if it is JJ McCarthy or it is Jaden Daniels, it's better than what is perceived right now for New England.
Yeah, I do agree with you for the most part. And seeing the way that they play 2 times a year and haunting me for the past, I don't know, I'm 27 years old. They've haunted me for 27 years at this point. Yeah, you're definitely right. It's always a better team than it's initially perceived on paper, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have the Arizona Cardinals here at number 4. So I'm thinking there's really no other way you can go here. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my number 1 player overall in the class, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr. Right away, Marvin, look, I am not going to hand the kid his gold jacket right now. I know some people want to do that already as Marvin Harrison's son. But he is a special type of athlete, and I would not be surprised if he's a guy that sits in the top 5 of targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns of receivers in year 1. I think he's a special type of ball player, 3-level threat. He'll also block on the outside for you. He's a guy in the red area that's going to be a threat right away. You're going to have to bracket him immediately, which is going to open up guys like Michael Wilson, who I really liked coming out of Stanford last year, had a really good year 1. Trey McBride is an inline and flex talent for that offense. So not going to be cute here at all. Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals at 4.
Let me ask you a question, since he's your number 1 overall player. So we've seen, at least on Twitter for the most part, all the Twitter GMs, myself included, that Marvin Harrison Jr., it seems like we're getting a little bit of prospect fatigue on him.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people are saying that Malik Neighbors is the better receiver. I personally think it's closer than a lot of people think. I don't think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is 2 tiers above Malik Neighbors, but I think he's certainly the better overall player. I'm curious to see what you think about that.
I'm right there with you. I do not have a major gap between the guys. I mean, Malik is right there, and as is Roma Dunze. Those guys are more of a 1A, 1B, 1C for me. Now, I know there is some prospect fatigue even with teams, as far as we didn't see really Marvin compete in this pre-draft process. No pro days, combine, nothing. But at the end of the day, teams, especially with 40 times, a lot of people get overhyped about 40 times, whether it's your Xavier Worthy and your 4.21 or your 4.6 from a Keon Coleman. Teams use GPS data during the season anyway. So that's something that they prioritize from an analytical perspective, more so than what we see from 40 times. But Marvin Harrison not doing anything in this pre-draft process, it doesn't affect me if I'm a GM, if I'm Monty Austin Ford out there in Arizona. I'm not getting cute with him. Give me Marvin Harrison, plug him in there hopefully for the next decade with Kyler Murray, and we'll roll from there.
I love that. I'm so glad that someone says the same thing that I'm saying. I personally said that during the pre-draft process, Marvin Harrison Jr. had nothing to gain and essentially everything to
Yeah,
lose in terms of, possibly getting injured, something like that. And a lot of people said, "Oh, how could you get injured, catching balls against ghosts?" And I said, "Well, how could you benefit your draft stock going out there and catching balls against ghosts?" So, it goes both ways. But at number 5 here, this is with no trades, essentially, this is an intriguing pick because a lot of people think that Harbaugh is going to go with Joe Alt. I personally don't think, because you're not moving Rashawn Slater over from the left side, putting Joe Alt at right tackle where he clearly didn't look comfortable in the pre-draft process, to me, doesn't really make too much sense. Quentin Johnston, Darius Davis, and was Josh Palmer is
yeah.
your threesome right now, essentially, on the roster. I think you got to go out there and you got to get an alpha number 1 wide receiver. If Malik Neighbors is on the board, we just talked about him. I'm going out and I'm getting Justin Herbert, a wide receiver 1 right away.
Absolutely love that. Look, Quentin Johnson, even there were concerns coming out with QJ last year at TCU. He's big, he's physical, he can run. But as far as the separation and the route running and the hips are stiff and he plays tall, there's a lot of progression still needed in Quentin Johnson's game. Now, I do expect the Chargers to take that next step under Harbaugh, someone that's going to come in the building and say, look, we got to step up. This is under the Brandon Staley Chargers. It was unacceptable as far as the talent that was on that football team on offense and defense, and they failed to live up to expectations. So hopefully they can get this guy in the building and Malik Neighbors with Justin Herbert. Malik, I think, is an absolute heck of a ball player on the outside, inside, outside, 3-level threat, stretch it vertically, designated touches on the outside if you want him to be a further extension of the run game as well. I think he's sensational. I don't think any of us will be surprised if potentially Malik Neighbors is the top receiver in this class 3 or 4 years down the road. I love the fit in LA with Justin Herbert.
Awesome. Now you have maybe a difficult decision here at number 6 overall with the New York Giants. So what are you thinking here?
They got to find a quarterback. Bottom line, New York. Look, I know there's some talk. Right, I could just sit here and grab Roma Dunze, and that's fine. And that's a route I could very easily go to pair with really the Wan'Dale Robinsons and Jalen Hyatts that they've tried to add in years past. But I am going to grab a quarterback here. Daniel Jones and Drew Lock, they don't move the needle for me at all. So I am going to grab Jaden Daniels here from LSU to make him the guy under the bright lights of New York, and just someone that I think this will expand the offense east-west pre-snap and north-south post-snap as far as targeting guys on the outside. Where you looked at what Jalen Hyatt did well at Tennessee, that's attack vertically, force teams to bracket him and beat him over the top. And we saw that Jaden Daniels does well at LSU, deliver the ball down the field to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacey, a name to know moving into next year. So I'm going to take Jaden Daniels here, contrary to belief. I know a lot of guys would like Roma Dunze there. I get it. But it got to have a guy that can deliver the ball to potentially guys they take down the road. So Jaden Daniels here from LSU, the Heisman winner here at number 6, excuse me.
I love that you mentioned what Jalen Hyatt did well at Tennessee, because I was going to say, we talked about the New England Patriots not really having, on the actual football field, not a bad trio of wide receivers. I do feel like with the New York Giants, if Darren Waller decides to, come back, maybe hopefully he stays healthy, Darren Waller, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, I feel like that's really not terrible, and they all win at different levels of the field. And like you said, Jaden Daniels delivers the ball down the field really well. We could see a huge second year from Jalen Hyatt if that's the case. I love that pick there.
Yeah.
At number 7, this seems pretty academic at this point. If Joe Alt's on the board for the Tennessee Titans, you take him. It's a lot of Titans fans, or I shouldn't say Titans fans, just in general, I feel like we're getting a little bit more prospect fatigue, kind of like what we saw from Olu Fashanu a couple weeks ago, where he was kind of tumbling down some people's boards.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting some sort of prospect fatigue from Joe Alt too. I just don't see it, to be honest with you. If he's there, I feel like he's still offensive tackle number 1 in this class. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get him. Get more protection for Will Levis. And it really seems like Tennessee is investing in the Will Levis game. So why not go get him a blindside blocker?
Absolutely, right? You got Calvin Ridley, you got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Treylon Burks, and you throw in Joe Alt to protect his blind side for potentially, if he's the guy, Will Levis in the next 5 years. That's great because, look, Peter Skoronski is also the bumper to his right side. Yeah. And that immediately, in my opinion, produces potentially one of, if not the best, left side of the line of scrimmage along the NFL. I think Skoronski is absolutely sensational. I think Joe Alt, I'm right there with you. There's been too much prospect fatigue on him. He's been my OT1 since last summer. He still is right now. I'm not getting cute in his evaluation. You know what type of athlete and type of lineman that you're going to get guys out of Notre Dame, even his partner on the right side, and Blake Fisher, we're going to hear go on day 2. That's a little underrated in this process. So Joe Alt, technically refined, not as athletic as your Marius Mims, Troy Fatanu, Tyler Guyton types in this class, but he's a plug and play guy for the next 8 to 10 years. And I think he's a guy that's going to make multiple all pro teams in his career. So I absolutely love that addition.
I love hearing that. I absolutely love hearing that. At number 8, with Rome Odunze still on the board, in my opinion here, I feel like this pick comes down to pretty simply, it's either going to be a receiver, edge, or maybe even a corner here with all the top corners on the board. So it's your pick here at number 8 with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, look, they just recently hosted Jared Verse on a 30 visit here in the last few weeks, from what I've been told. But look, I'm not going to go Jared Verse. I'm going to stick at edge, and I'm going to go Laitu Latu from UCLA. He is my edge one in this class. For some people, they have him in the teens, they have him in the 20s. That's not me. There is a little bit of unsexy. That's a word we know we're going to go with Laitu Latu, because look, he is not twitched up like a Dallas Turner, but he's someone that reminds me a lot of how we talked about with Ryan Kerrigan out of Purdue and George Karlaftis out of Purdue, to where they're extremely technically refined pass rushers, to where inside, outside, wind through your chest, someone that understands the nuances and has counters to the counters of offensive linemen in this class. Now, you turn on the Oregon State tape against Fuaga, or you turn on the Arizona tape against Jordan Morgan, that tape is not great, but those guys are expected to be potential top-tier tackles in the NFL. But what I expect Latu in the next 3-4 years to continue to develop and be a potential 9-10+ sack a year guy along this Atlanta front, to where they've tried to make it work with guys like Arnold Ebiketie. Get your guy in the top 10. Latu is that guy for me. I think he's sensational. I just think he's an outstanding football player, bottom line. So give me Laitu Latu down there in Arizona with Raheem Morris. Or excuse me, with Atlanta with Raheem Morris.
I love that pick. I really do, because it to me, it's out of the box. I'll be transparent with you. My pick usually for Atlanta at 8 is Jared Verse.
Yeah.
But Latu, like you said, just a fantastic football player. A lot of people will always, I feel like the more casual take is, oh, well, can he stay healthy? Well, I mean, look at his time in UCLA. He's been fantastic at UCLA. He's been an unbelievable player, and it seems like those injuries are way, way far behind him. So why not? Why not take him? Like you said, it might be a little bit more unsexy than the, super athletic Dallas Turner, but I love it. I mean, the guy produces. That's really what it comes down to at that point, is the production. But at 9 here, I have the Chicago Bears. This pick might be a little bit tougher now with some of the players that are on the board here. Rome Odunze, of course. Dallas Turner is another player that I would seriously consider here, because having Dallas Turner and Montez Sweat as bookend edge rushers just feels unbelievable. But like we talked about before we started recording, Keenan Allen is not 25 years old anymore. On paper, it seems awesome. DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen as well. You have Cole Kmet. It seems really, really nice. They added DeAndre Swift as well. This seems like an awesome offense. Why not keep adding to it? We just got our franchise quarterback. Why are we going to sit here and bolster up the defensive side when we still have 2 other picks for that later on in the draft? I am taking Rome Odunze here to be that guy that's going to be arguably the wide receiver 1, or at the very worst, wide receiver 2 after Keenan Allen is out of town. And that right away, that seems like one of the best trios in football at the wide receiver position. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. Sign me up for that every day of the week.
I think Rome is an absolute stud. I really do. I think he's a hell of a ball player. And there was a lot of attention, obviously, with that Washington offense, of course, with Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan. Guys we're going to hear in this class come off the board on day 2 as well. But Rome is just, look, he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's an excellent route runner. He'll do all the dirty work if you have to on the outside. Doesn't matter if it's 1st and 10 and we're in September and we're lining up his first ever play, or we're in January and we're trying to compete for an NFC North title 3 years down the road. Rome Odunze is going to compete for your team and do everything possible to also improve his skill set. Because if I look at a lot of these guys in the top 15 and I say, he's playing his best football of his career right now, I'm not touching him in the top 15. And to look at a guy like Rome that has that skill set, projecting him down the line, I love that addition. I'm right there with you. Keenan Allen is not 25 years old anymore. I love the pairing of him and DJ Moore specifically as that 1A, 1B. And you also got Cole Kmet to free things up for him up the seam. So I really, really, really do like that Rome pick there at 9.
Now, you have a big responsibility here, Ryan. You got my favorite team. I don't usually give up this pick, but You're an exception to the rule today here. You have my New York Jets at number 10, and it seems all but academic at this point what this pick is going to be.
Yeah, I am a Brock Bowers guy. I will say that first and foremost, and what he's going to do as a multi-phase contributor as far as in the run game and the passing game. I saw what Aaron Rodgers was able to do in years past, increasing the level skill set of a guy like Robert Tunyon in Green Bay. Now, I know Tyron Smith is in the building. I know Morgan Moses is there, and I could very easily go tackle and add a guy. But I am going to go Brock Bowers here from Georgia. You brought in Mike Williams. I hope he stays healthy. I would love to see him and Garrett Wilson on the perimeter. What Brock Bowers is going to do for this offense is he's going to force teams who already live in sub, but lighten the box a little bit more to allow guys in the backfield like Breece Hall to work downhill. Now, Brock Bowers is not Darnell Washington that we saw come out last year as an inline blocker at the Y position, but he is somebody that will stick his face in the mud. Watch the Auburn tape. Really, that Auburn tape of Brock Bowers is, for me, one of the most dominant tapes of any player in this class. It's just sensational what he did inline and flexed in space. So Brock Bowers in this offense with Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams on the outside. I really do love the fit right away as a multi-phase contributor. So give me him as someone that's going to be, I think, sensational for this New York offense.
Yeah, I mean, I did some of my own talking myself out of it a couple times this past week. And then I kind of smacked myself in the face and said, "What are you doing? Can you imagine Brock Bowers?" And Jet fans are, you know, I'll be transparent with you, Ryan. They are it's one of the worst fan bases on Twitter. It's one of the best and one of the worst because, you can get someone like Brock Bowers and the first thing they'll say will be like, "Oh, well, we have Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Ruckert." And it's like, really?
Yes,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's true. They do have those guys, but Brock Bowers can just bring something that those two guys just cannot bring to the offense. So at the end of the day, if you're truly going for it this year, like it seems like the New York Jets are gearing for, got to go get Brock Bowers if he's there.
Get your guy. I will never flack a GM for going to get your guy. I mean, last year we sat here when we were talking about all the corners. Which corners are going to come off the board? Gonzalez, Witherspoon, and Washington at 16 said Emmanuel Forbes is our guy ahead of Christian Gonzalez, and they went and got their guy. Now, it didn't work out in year one. Hopefully it works better for them in year two, but you go and get your guy. I will never flack a GM in an organization for doing that if they do have the correlating coaching and development to continue to evolve that guy's skill set.
Well, I agree with you because we always say, "Oh, you could have had this guy." Hindsight's 2020. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. If that's your guy, you go get your guy. It doesn't always work out, and I agree with you 100% on that. And 11 here, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, most of the top quarterbacks are off the board at this point. We have 2 first-round picks, 11 and 23 here. Now, I'm not so inclined to take a quarterback here at number 11. To be quite honest with you, I do think that either Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. will be there at number 23. So I'm personally going to hold off on that. Could come back to bite me in the butt because I don't know what you have up your sleeve, sir. But, I mean, this might not be a need. But I feel like if Dallas Turner is on the board here at number 11 for the Minnesota Vikings, I personally didn't expect him to be here at number 11. I feel like I kind of have to take him. Pairing him with Jonathan Gennard feels awesome on that defensive line there for the Minnesota Vikings. Give Brian Flores another twitched up elite pass rusher to, work his magic with. And I feel like after losing Danielle Hunter, it's funny, they just basically swapped defensive ends. Danielle Hunter, Jonathan Gennard. You bring in another explosive guy off the edge. This is a premium position at any stretch of the imagination. Edge, getting a pass rusher is a premium position. I feel like I can't pass up on it. Like I said, it might not be a need, especially with some guys like Terrion Arnold, Jared Verse on the board, but I can't let the slide of Dallas Turner go past 11 here.
I agree. I think the word potential is the biggest. It almost scares me a little bit with Dallas Turner because that word ultimately gets coaches fired, right? The potential of somebody being something. But I'm right there with you as far as Jonathan Grenard. They brought in also Andrew Van Ginkel, really underrated pass rusher, a DPR in this league to lean on. But I think the best football is absolutely down the road for Dallas Turner. All the boxes that you want in that outside linebacker position, or a guy that can stand up, put his hand in the dirt. You can slide him inside. You can have him stand up at middle linebacker. You saw what obviously Dallas did before Micah Parsons made that transition. He's extremely athletic and can do really everything within the front seven for a defense. I really wouldn't be shocked if he's out covering running backs in the flat or carrying a tight end up a seam potentially in a pinch. Dallas Turner could absolutely do that, but I'm right there with you. Inside that Brian Flores defense, aggressive, physical, get after people, Dallas Turner fits perfectly.
Now, th- let me ask you before you make the pick for the Denver Broncos. I mean, to me personally, it feels like this is one of the bleakest outlooks that we have in a future for an NFL team. At number 12, I feel like they don't personally have the draft capital to move up to get one of those elite quarterbacks that they're looking for. And I don't know. It feels like a team that wants to compete but doesn't have the talent to compete nearly at any level, the talent to compete. So what do you think about the outlook of this team before you make the pick at 12?
Yeah, look, I at the end of the day with Denver, and really just this entire top 15, top 20 of the draft, I'm excited to see where this offensive talent goes. It's just exciting off the hoof as
Yeah.
far as where these guys are going to land. But here at 12, I am going to take a quarterback. I am. I'm not. This could be a trade back spot if they don't have a guy there that they really like and they're trying to get more capital, as you mentioned. But I am going to take a quarterback. It's not Michael Penix. It is going to be Bo Nix from Oregon. Now, the only thing with Bo Nix for me, and I know teams I've spoken with in this process, is how do you balance being a game manager, but also willing to threaten the football down the field at a more consistent rate? Now, we saw it at times, right? Throwing to Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson at Oregon. But even back to his time at Auburn, to where he wanted to dink and dunk his way down the field, which we even saw at times in the Pac-12. How do you balance that? And are you willing to take a guy like that can potentially mask some of the inefficiencies that you have along the offensive line and separators on the outside after getting rid of course, Jerry Jeudy? Are you going to take him in the top 15? But I do like the maturization process of what I've seen from Bo Nix as a guy that's going to come in and understand what he's looking at. I don't think he's a guy that gets enough credit as an athlete. Now, he's
Agreed.
not Caleb Williams, Drake May, or close to Jaden Daniels as far as an athletic profile perspective, but he's someone that can create outside of structure. I loved what I saw from him in certain periods at the Senior Bowl in a neutral environment with neutral receivers. And you look at this Denver offense to where he's going to be asked to live in the intermediate areas with a guy like Greg Dulcich at tight end, who I really liked coming out of school at UCLA. That fits for me. So get your guy if you're Sean Payton there and you don't move away from 12. Again, be shocked if they do stay at 12 and take a quarterback. I do think they potentially trade back or trade up to get their guy. But if we're staying here and in this exercise, I'll go Bo Nix from Oregon for Sean Payton.
Yeah, it's funny. I categorized the last couple times I actually have had Bo Nix selected here at number 12, and the way that I categorized him was his game feels a lot like the latter half of Drew Brees' career,
Yeah.
where Drew Brees excelled in that short to intermediate area of the field, didn't turn the ball over too much, was very conscious of the negative plays. I feel like that's what Bo Nix does really, really well. And like you said, out of the structure, he's very underrated in terms of being a playmaker. Gets a lot of hate. He really does. And I feel like a lot of the hate is just really from his time at Auburn. People haven't looked at the last couple of years at Oregon. So I feel like this is a perfectly valid spot to take him, especially for Denver, who might not have the draft capital to move up. I love that pick. 13, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like this is, even with Olu Fashanu on the board, I'm still going to take Talisi Fuaga here. I just feel like in terms of, right tackle prospects in this draft class, I feel like he is the most polished. He will be the best pro. I think maybe someone like Amarius Mims or J.C. Latham could have higher ceilings when it's all said and done, especially Mims. I actually have said multiple times, I think that if he, you know, comes through on his potential, I know you said you don't like that word, but if he comes through on his potential, he could have the highest ceiling of any offensive lineman in the draft class. But I'm going to go with Fuaga here. It's just a natural plug and play right tackle for the Raiders.
Man, him opposite of Colton Miller, they're going to get after people in Vegas, and I think that's what you want if you're Antonio Pierce. And I do really like that addition. I think it's someone that's going to lead the way, right, for Zamir White moving forward with no more Josh Jacobs in town, and just a plug and play addition, as you said, for hopefully the next 7 to 10 years in Vegas. I like that addition.
All right, New Orleans Saints here. Saints are an interesting case for you at number 14, but I feel like with the injury woes and the injury concerns long term that they have with some of their players, this pick seems pretty much like a slam dunk.
Yeah, they didn't make a ton of additions, right, in free agency. That they stayed rather quiet, and the same names along the offensive line that we've seen in Ryan Ramczyk and Cesar Ruiz and Eric McCoy, Trevor Penning are still there. But Trevor Penning, since he came out of Northern Iowa, the major talk around him was, look, we love the way he throws people out of the club, but technically there's a long way to go. And there still is a long way to go, even after suffering the injury earlier in his career. So I am going to take Olu Fashanu here from Penn State to be their left tackle of the future, whoever the quarterback is in the next 3-4 years for the New Orleans Saints. I don't expect it to be Derek Carr moving forward long term. But I think Olu, there's a little bit of prospect fatigue on him, absolutely. But there's a lot of Paris Johnson and Olu Fashanu's tape for me looking back even to last year, because when I'm trying to parallel prospects, watching Joe Alt against JT Tuimoloau at Ohio State and watching Olu Fashanu against Tuimoloau, Fashanu's on his face way too much for me. And if I'm looking at a guy taking the potential top 10 picks, top 5 picks we were talking just a few months ago, I need to see overwhelmingly dominant type of tape, both in the run game, moving vertical, and when you're dropping anchor and pass pro. And I haven't seen that in Olu's tape. So maybe down the line, right, his best football is down the line. The movement skills, the intangibles are all there for Olu to be whatever he wants to be. But I do think he slides a little bit. I think this is a perfect spot for him at 14 in New Orleans, blindside protectant. So give me Olu Fashanu there, 14 to New Orleans Saints, and be their left tackle of the future. And Trevor Penning is just either you bump into guard or you're potentially on your way out.
Yeah, with Penning is an interesting case because I don't remember off the top of my head. He's 6'8", or is he 6'7" or 6'8"?
Penning, I believe he's 6'7".
Yeah, so and long, like he was like 6'7", like 311 or something like that. I don't know how well. He's kind of up in the air for me too, and a lot of Saints fans just can't stand him at this point. I feel bad for the guy, but at 15, I had the Indianapolis Colts. One of my good buddies, one of my favorite YouTubers, J-Wack Gridiron's favorite team. So I'm sure he'll be watching for this pick here. And I would love to go wide receiver here. I really would, especially with Brian Thomas Jr. on the board. I would love to, but I feel like I have to upgrade the secondary here. It's a young secondary that doesn't really have that alpha cornerback one. And for me, at least what I've seen, I think that Quinyon Mitchell is that guy that would fit in Gus Bradley's system absolutely perfectly. I love Terrion Arnold. I just love what Mitchell can bring to this defense a little bit more. He seems like just a natural leader in that secondary. And for me, he's instant CB1 in Indianapolis. Arnold, it's for me, I'm going to ask you your opinion on this after I make the pick, but I feel like they are just so close. I feel like maybe in terms of overall rankings, I'd have Arnold a little bit ahead of Mitchell in terms of just his overall lateral agility and quickness to stop on a dime and change direction. But Mitchell just seems like such a playmaker and just an electric footballer overall. And I think that's why I'm going to take him here as an instant upgrade to the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Juju Brents. I really do. Loved him coming out of K-State. But I don't think he's a guy that's an immediate CB1. And I'm not going to say that Dallas Flowers. I like Dallas. Good friends with Dallas Flowers coming out of Pittsburgh State. Small school kid, but I don't think he's a starter at the NFL level where you want playing 85, 90% of snaps at the NFL level. And I still do like Kenny Moore at nickel. But Quinyon, for me, is CB1 in this class. And really the Senior Bowl, yeah, was outstanding for me. It wasn't close as far as who the top guy there really in the entire event. It was him and it was Jackson Powers Johnson as guys that were just overwhelmingly dominant every single day. And he wasn't facing slouches. And those showcase environments, it's set up for the receiver to consistently succeed and make those DBs look good.
Those one-on-one drills are brutal for the defensive backs.
They are. And Quinyon was outstanding. It doesn't matter if he was working in the short areas against Roman Wilson or being pressed vertical against a Brendan Rice. He was outstanding. And you mentioned the playmaking. I love Quinyon's game. I think he's an absolute dog. I think he's an alpha on the outside that'll work inside the contact window. He'll force you to get off the line of scrimmage. If he knows he can bully you, he'll bully you. If he knows you got a little bit more juice in your game, he'll play off man, has the hips and the foot speed to run with you as well. I love the pick there.
One thing that I keep going back to in my explanation for whenever I take Quinyon Mitchell is anytime that we had questions about his overall game coming out of a MAC school, of course, you're going to have those looming questions is, well, he answered every question that we had going into the Senior Bowl. For me, it was, well, how is he going to fare in press coverage against some of these receivers? He was outstanding. Going to the combine, well, how is he going to run? What is his true speed? And that vertical speed was unbelievable. And I feel like every time that we had a question, he just kept answering it. And then after all, I was like, you know what? This guy is CB1. I mean, there's no other questions I could ask about his game where he doesn't answer or exceed expectations, I feel like.
And you know what's great too is the fact of how the draft process and the scouting process for teams has evolved. Because 10 years ago, if we sat here and said a kid from Toledo is going to be the top corner in the class, someone would think there's some witchcraft or something going on in the process for some team as far as what are you looking at. But this is how the scouting process for teams, how regions have expanded to every corner of the country to where guys can play everywhere. Not just don't look at the decal on a guy's helmet, look at how you can project their skill set. And here we are today on April 10th, looking at this thing. At Quinyon Mitchell has a very, very high possibility of going top 20, being the top corner in this class. And I wouldn't be shocked if it happens.
Yeah, it really is funny how and I did a prospect profile on my YouTube channel for Quinyon Mitchell rather early. I believe it was January, and I said this guy has the intangibles to be the best corner from this draft class. And it's tough to find highlights of Toledo players for the most part. And I had to run the same clip basically like 3 times in the video of him intercepting the what was it, Northwestern quarterback 4 times in one game.
No, Northern Illinois, Lombardi. Yeah.
Yeah, Northern Illinois. Yeah, Rocky Lombardi. Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And someone said like I would love to see more of his skill set, but I just can't. I was like, unless you watch the game film or all 22, it's really tough to get highlights of these guys. So just trust me on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you at number 16 here, you have the Seattle Seahawks. I'm interested to see how you take this one here.
Man, I think there's a lot of different routes that I can go here. I sure as heck will not be adding a receiver. I love it. Love the receivers that they got out there in Seattle. But I absolutely love Mike McDonald defensively, what he's going to do in Seattle. However, I also really like Boye Mafe, and I also really like Derek Hall moving into year 2 from Auburn. So I'm actually going to go and make an addition on the offensive side of the football along the trenches, and I'm going to take Troy Fautanu. And the reason why I say that is the connection specifically with Ryan Grubb coming in from Washington, that connection as his offensive coordinator at Washington, now in Seattle, and that connection. And the thing about Troy that stands out to me the most is the footwork. Not only the positional versatility to play tackle or play guard, because I also love the addition, right, of Charles Cross, and they've been trying to make it work with Abe Lucas on the right side, but his ability to play guard right away and potentially work next to Charles Cross as his bumper on the left side, center to his right side, press vertical, get out as a puller, be just an extremely dominant type of athlete along the interior for both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, and protect for either, whether it's Geno Smith or maybe Sam Howell is potentially the future in Seattle throwing to those receivers. So I really do like Troy Fautanu's game. I think this is the range where he goes, really that 13 to 16. I can't say enough good things about Troy Fautanu's game. It really starts with footwork, to where it always starts with every single position in every sport. Doesn't matter. You're playing football, you're playing hockey, baseball. You don't have footwork, you're not going to play at a high level. And Troy Fautanu that's one of his elite traits is footwork. So give me him in the middle of the teams.
I love that. I feel like that's a perfect. It's a perfect fit. A pick that I've made a couple times here. My last one, I actually did go Graham Barton there at 16. Just purely, I mean, I just admittedly, I just kind of wanted to shake things up just a tad. And after Graham Barton had like an incredible pro day, I was like, yeah, let's throw him up there. Sure, he fits. He fits what they're looking for. But Fautanu, for me, if he's there, I feel like that's just the slam dunk pick. Kind of same deal here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, again, I mentioned him 2 picks ago. I'd love to take Brian Thomas Jr. here. I really like these 2 defensive tackles here, and Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy as well. But if Terrion Arnold's still on the board here, I feel like with Ryan Nielsen coming in, the defensive coordinator here, he likes to play a little bit more of that aggressive press man. They got rid of Darius Williams because, well, at 5'8", 31 years old, you can't really play that type of defense. I feel like Terrion Arnold is a fantastic player. He'll fit this defense perfectly. Terrion Arnold and Tyson Campbell seems like an elite duo on the outside. And I feel like that's something that with a new defensive coordinator, we really can't pass up here at number 17.
It is. And even bringing in Ronald Darby as a veteran that can play inside out for you will help. But you can't sit here and say that Ronald Darby is going to be a top 2 corner in your defense and you're expecting success. That can't happen. Because I really do like Tyson Campbell, especially the athletic intangibles that he offers to run with. I don't care if you're not going to run right alongside Tyreek Hill, but he can sure as heck keep up with a guy like Tyreek, and he's long and he's physical. So I really do like that addition. You mentioned his ability in press man, what Ryan Nielsen wants to do inside that contact window, allow guys like the newly extended Josh Allen to get after the quarterback. They brought in Eric Armstead. I like that addition.
Yeah, 18. You have, I mean, there's a plethora of different ways that you can go here. And this is why, Ryan, this is why we bring someone like you in here to decipher the information for these tough picks here at number 18 with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, there are budget avenues that I can go, but I'm really not going to get cute because I've seen the injuries that have Joe Burrow has suffered over the years. You got to keep him upright. You got to be able to look at the defense, not looking at the sky every single snap. I got to keep my investment healthy, so I'm going to add J.C. Latham from Alabama. I think he's one of the more not only versatile players in this class to where I could throw him in at tackle or guard. Now, I know Trent Brown is there as a big boy they brought over from New England, but I think he's someone that can play right guard and take Alex Kappa's spot right away along that front five. He's extremely wide in his lower half, which really has that atypical mold of a guard that wants to live on that vertical plane, downhill type of blocker. But I think fundamentally, J.C. Latham is one of the strongest physically overpowering linemen in this entire class. There's really not a ton of holes in his game. He's extremely hard to get around in pass pro. His anchor is as good as anybody in this class, and you potentially put him within the interior of this Bengals offensive line. Joe Burrow is going to be extremely happy. The additions that they made in the backfield. Now, I know they brought in Zach Moss after losing Joe Mixon, but I really do like Chase Brown for this offense as well. So give me J.C. Latham here. Not a sexy pick by any means, but Joe Burrow is absolutely going to love it. Just allow him to stay upright.
That is a lot of beef on that
Yes.
on that offensive line. I'm trying to think about it now. I'm like, holy crap, that's tough to get around, especially on that right side. That would be really tough to get around. 19. I feel like the Rams, we have a lot of different ways that we can go with this. I'm going to, oh man, we really do. I'm looking at it now. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. So many different ways. You could honestly make an argument for any of these guys that are on the board right now in our initial view here. You can make any of them. I might make it a little bit of a different pick here. I feel like with the retirement of Aaron Donald, I mean, they've had fantastic players come in over the last couple of years. I mean, I go back and say that the Rams honestly had the best draft of anyone last year, and they didn't even have a first round pick. They were phenomenal. And Kobe Turner was unbelievable. Byron Young is someone that they could really build around here. I feel like we have to add to the pass rush, though. I would like to go interior, but now that I'm thinking about it, Jared Verse is there. Chop Robinson is there. But I think I'm going to stick to my guns here. I'm going to take Johnny Newton here at number 19. For me, I doubled down on this on Twitter yesterday, and it caused quite a stir. And that's usually what I'm there for. I'm there to cause a stir. Pure satirical content on Twitter. I said that I still think I'll double down on the fact that I think Johnny Newton is potentially the best defensive player in this entire draft class. I loved his game for quite some time now, and I think that he'd fit perfectly on the interior for the LA Rams on that defense.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Kobe Turner. Look, guy that went to Shrine, didn't get a combine invite, and he went top 100. Same thing really happened.
Crazy that he didn't get.
It is crazy. It is crazy. NFL gets cute on way too many guys. But same thing happened for Broderick Martin, right out of Western Kentucky. Went to Shrine, no combine, top 100. But Johnny Newton, definitely one of the premier interior defensive linemen in this class, twitched up out of his mind. The length has concerned some teams. It's not going to concern me. He's going to attack outside shoulder, inside shoulder before we even have time to get in your kick step. I love the addition. You got to try. You're not going to replace Aaron Donald. I'm not going to say that. Potentially one of the best defensive players ever. But get a guy in the building right now that'll only allow and force isolated matchups for guys like Kobe and Byron Young on the outside.
Yeah, I love that. Now, the Steelers here at 20, a lot of different ways, I feel like, at least on the offensive side of the ball, that you can go. So I'm curious to see which way you go here with the players that are available.
Yeah, I think obviously they lose Deontay Johnson. I think they have the high expectations for a guy like Calvin Austin this year alongside George Pickens. But I'm going to go up front. And I know they added a big boy out of Georgia a couple years ago, right? And Broderick Jones last year. Allow him to slide over to the left side, and I'm going to bring in Amarius Mims.
Yeah.
His former teammate, really, at Georgia. I think Amarius, if he's able to stay healthy, I think he has the potential to potentially be one of the best, if not the best tackle in this class down the line. A massive human being, someone that is rocked up out of his mind at 6'7", 320 plus pounds. He's just a sensational mover, but he's got to stay healthy. And as we know, the best ability is availability at the NFL level. But the potential of him hate using that word, but it is through the roof along this front, and getting under the tutelage of Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh to where they're going to get after people and also get out in space. They want to use some QB design runs for Russell Wilson or Justin Fields to expand that playbook. You got Amarius Mims on one side, Broderick Jones on the other. That's a good start for your front five.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that Broderick Jones is probably going to be sliding back over to the left side this year.
Yeah.
So that leaves a big time. I mean, for me, if depending on who the player is on the board, I feel like a home run pick is either Amarius Mims or JC Latham
Yep.
here. I love that pick. And like I said earlier on, I'll double down on it. I said that if he could live up to his expectations, he might have the highest ceiling of any tackle in the draft class. Just
Yeah.
like you said, he's rocked up. I mean, that picture that everyone saw from the combine of him from like the side profile, you're like, how the hell is this guy 340 pounds? He is like chiseled to the bone. He's an unbelievable specimen of a human being. And I agree with you 100%. I feel like that would be just the perfect. I feel like Steelers fans would be elated with that pick.
They should be.
21.
They
Let,
should be. You never know.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, that is true. You,
Yeah.
you never know. That's true. Now we have the Miami Dolphins here. Now, got to be careful with the Miami Dolphins because it's pick 21, it's pick 55, and then it's pick 158 after that.
Mhm.
It's tough. They have to hit a home run on their first two picks essentially to have really any day one impact players. I'll say at least on paper because you never know, those day three guys could absolutely be impact players from day one. But I do feel like edge is a sneaky need for the Miami Dolphins. I'm not going to do it here, but I feel like that could be something that they can consider, especially if Jared Verse is on the board at 21. Same thing with Chop Robinson. Cooper DeJean is a player that interests me a lot here as well. Jackson Powers Johnson seems really like the perfect pick here. I really like Graham Barton, but at the end of the day, I will go with Jackson Powers Johnson here at number 21. And I'm curious to see what you think about JPJ. And I know you just talked about him at the Senior Bowl, but apparently, from what I'm reading, and again, smoke screens, it is smoke screen, it is
Yeah.
lying season. But apparently, the NFL draft community is higher on JPJ than the NFL executives. So I'd like to hear if you know if there's any truth behind that.
Yeah, well, Jackson Bowers Johnson for me is my number one center in the class, and everything I've heard is that there's a few teams I've spoken to, specifically really in the NFC West, that have top 15 grades on
Okay.
Jackson Bowers Johnson. I personally absolutely love him. Seeing him at Oregon and then down at the Senior Bowl, just dominant, just a dominant player that you want along the lungs of your offensive line for a long, long, long time. But the buzz is real. This may be a spot to where he does go top 16, 17. I really wouldn't be surprised with that because he has that versatility at center and guard. You know, as I took Troy Fautanu with Seattle, he could potentially go to Seattle and play guard if he needs to. So the buzz is absolutely real on Jackson, and a hell of a young man as well, as good as he is a football player, and just someone that's going to be an immediate impact player, similar to what we've seen in years past from, I'm not going to compare his skill set to a Zach Martin or Quentin Nelson, but if you're looking for that type of impact along the interior of your offensive line, Jackson Powers Johnson, whether you're in gap or whether you're running zone, is going to be just a hell of a player early in his career.
Love hearing that type of feedback because I feel like, again, going back to, I hate saying it over and over again, but I feel like at one point there was a bit of prospect fatigue because I feel like once the NFL draft community, discovers a player and they obsess over that player, well, they kind of get bored of him after a while. And
Yep.
then they kind of, for me early on, what I saw with a lot of people was Kool-Aid McKinstry. They were like, wow, this guy could be,
Mhm.
this guy could be a top 10 pick. And now on a lot of mock drafts, you see him in the second round and you're like, well, what really happened? And I feel like Jackson Powers Johnson is someone lately, at least that I've seen where it's like, oh yeah, he's still great, but like, there are cause for concerns. And, you say to yourself, well, that's every prospect, it's not just Jackson Powers Johnson.
Right, correct.
But let's see here. At number 22, you have the Philadelphia Eagles.
Philadelphia Eagles, guys that finally face adversity and hid behind the couch there in 2023 for Nick Sirianni's group. For me, as an NFC East guy, obviously, for Washington's perspective, I'm sure they love to see it. Dallas, New York, they love to see them falter in the playoffs. However, they need corner help. They really do. And I'm going to go with Cooper DeJean here. Now,
Love that.
I think he is somebody that right away, I do not want to throw him in man. There are some concerns for me in his hips. I think they're a little tight. and the overall, not the top end speed, but the immediate acceleration. And once a guy has 1 yard of separation, that ball is usually in the chest of a receiver at the NFL level. But in zone, and a guy that's also going to come downhill and stick his face in the mud, physical type of athlete on the outside, the Philly fans are absolutely going to love a guy like Cooper DeJean. Now, they had Reed Blankenship there as a safety that can have a hybrid role, type of second level, third level, but he's never going to try to go out to the outside and play corner. Cooper from Iowa, he's much better than Riley Moss coming out of Iowa last year. I will absolutely say that. There's no question there. So give me Cooper DeJean here to be potentially their CB1 moving forward. Darius Slay and James Bradbury, we saw it towards the back end of last year, were flat out not good enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can play and look like all pros, but then there's times to where they look like they're unplayable. So give me a young, youth-infused piece in this defense to play off of the front four to where they expect them to get home. They got Bryce Huff. They got Devin White in the building to add some more pressure from the second level. So Cooper DeJean's going to be my pick here for Philadelphia Eagles.
I love that pick, and I feel like there's so many different ways you can go with DeJean here. I feel like maybe some people kind of started to shy away from that pick because they re-signed Devontae Maddox, but to me,
Yeah.
that doesn't really make too much of a difference. And I want to hear your opinion on this. Early on in the draft process, I said Cooper DeJean is a Chuck Clark type of player in my eyes, where you could kind of just stick him anywhere on the defense in any package, and he will make an impact somewhere. And I'm kind of curious to see what you think about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the fact of the matter, too, to where you looked at the safeties, I just mentioned Reed Blankenship, and then I love Sidney Brown that they drafted out of Illinois. But I wouldn't even doubt that Sidney Brown potentially, and how defenses are continuing to evolve as far as how just rocked up he is as far as the physical frame, that he plays even closer to the line of scrimmage in that robber type of role for this defense moving forward. Because at depth, there's a lot of times to where Sidney just comes downhill with his blinders on and just attacks whatever's there. And it's something that he's got to slow down a little bit with. So I'm right there with you in that Chuck Clark role. Corner, safety, robber, it doesn't matter. He'll play the edge. He'll stack and shed a receiver, make a play in the backfield for a TFL. Just give me a guy with versatility. Versatility's king at the NFL level. He can run. He's physical. He can play zone unlike anybody in this class. Downhill type of trigger. So I think Cooper's a good fit here inside this new Vic Fangio scheme for Philly.
Yeah, I love that as well. I love the fit. That's a pick I've made quite a few times over the past few weeks or so. 23, I have the pleasure of drafting for the Minnesota Vikings. Yet again, some people might be watching this video going, after he drafted Dallas Turner at number 11 overall. But don't worry, I'll get you your quarterback. I'm true on my word. I feel like, Ryan really wanted to draft someone just to screw me at some point there. But he didn't. Appreciate that. So Michael Penix Jr. is going to come off the board here at number 23. I feel like there's a lot to not love about the projection to the NFL level in terms of, there was attacking the middle, essentially non-existent. How he handles pressure, not great. We saw it in a couple games later on in the season, especially in the college football championship game as well. How does he handle pressure? How does he move? To me, I always thought Michael Penix Jr. was a back end of the first round talent, regardless of the athletics. I mean, sure, he's a great athlete. He is, but a lot of things that people don't kind of take into consideration is how translatable that is on game tape. And we didn't really see those athletics on game tape. So for me, what is going to change to make that jump from college football to the hardest place to play in football is the NFL. So how are we going to make that change? It could be coaching, but I feel like in terms of his overall intangibles, his cannon of an arm, the fact that you're giving him a pretty decent offensive line, they have great tackles, they have amazing weapons. I feel like they have Kevin O'Connell. This is a perfect offense for someone like Michael Penix Jr. to succeed in and succeed in very quickly.
This is the fit that this is my favorite so far in the draft on day one because of what you mentioned as far as the tackles they got, right? And then also the weapons outside with Justin Jefferson and, of course, Jordan Addison. Now, they potentially could make an addition on day two because Trent Sherfield's their wide receiver 3 right now. They could potentially make an upgrade there. But just off the hoof in a 10,000-foot view, the guys that they have right now, as far as correlating surroundings for what Michael Penix could be, I absolutely love. And now for me, I've always had a second-round grade on Michael Penix. I cannot ignore what he did to Indiana to where he looked nearly unplayable. And really his evaluation does parallel that of how I evaled Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee last year, a transfer to Virginia Tech, lived in that vertical offense, put your back foot in the ground and rip it to your talent that you had on the outside. But the biggest thing for me was I didn't get excited about what Penix did against the Pac-12 or against Texas. Heading into that Michigan game to where they had NFL talent at all three levels, it was NFL talent on offense against NFL talent on defense. How is Michael Penix going to be able to take the shallow to intermediate stuff, engage that core and lower half, and really rip throws into tighter windows to where he's an all-arm thrower, and I respect that about Mike.
Mhm.
But engaging your core and your legs at a higher level will even create that increased velocity and RPMs in the football that all the analytical gurus love to attest to with these quarterbacks. So I love the fit there in the 20s. I think this is where if Minnesota or Denver or someone potentially doesn't make their move for him, or Vegas doesn't make a move for him there in the top 15, I really do like this fit in the mid 20s with those weapons. And you mentioned Kevin O'Connell with a young quarterback inside a dome as well in your home games. Let him sling that thing around to guys on the outside like Addison and Jefferson. I really do love the fit.
Yeah, and I guess, if the worry of him hitting the middle of the field, having someone like TJ Hawkinson hopefully coming back
Mhm.
fully healthy helps a lot there too.
Yep.
So, you have the Dallas Cowboys here at 24. Man, I'm force feeding you your entire rivaled teams here. You've done all of the NFC East at this point.
Yeah, Dallas. Look, I'm going to say this. Look, Jerry Jones loves splash, absolutely does. And if you don't believe it. He absolutely loves splash. Now, would I have loved Jackson Powers Johnson here? Yes. Would I have loved to take a Graham Barton? He's there. I'm not going to take him. I'm going to give them a receiver. This is a huge year for Dak Prescott in 2024. Absolutely. Now, it's a big year every year for him. But you look at this receiving core right now, CeeDee Lamb, another year on the legs of Brandon Cooks. It's Jalen Tolbert, no more Michael Gallup, and Jalen Brooks. That's your top four receivers. I need someone that can take the attention off of CeeDee Lamb
Yeah.
consistently at a high rate. I'm going to go Keon Coleman here from
Wow.
Florida State. Now, some people, again, he can't run. He ran a 4.6. Well, turn on the tape at Florida State. And this young man, his ability to be just a physically overpowering type of receiver. And as a wide receiver, too, on this team for the Dallas Cowboys with a quarterback that understands how to rip it to all levels, I really do like the fit. And again, it comes down to who's making the pick. That is Jerry Jones and his staff in Dallas, and they love to make a splash. Now, they do need some more additions along the front. You lost Tyron Smith. You lost Tyler Biotish. The combination at left guard and center with TJ Bass, Tyler Bass with TJ Bass, excuse me, and then Brock Hoffman from Virginia Tech at center. You can upgrade that, absolutely, but I don't think Dallas goes there on day one. They want your Taco Charlton's type of splash in the first round. So give me Keon Coleman, big physical athletic kid out of Florida State, to be that wide receiver 2 behind CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I accidentally hit Xavier Worthy somehow. Don't know how that happened. So we'll just we'll replace Xavier Worthy with Keon Coleman there. But yeah, I love that as well. I was really thinking you were going to hit Brian Thomas Jr. there. That definitely surprised me there. That was one of those interesting picks. But I do, you look at right away. A lot of people want to compare Keon Coleman to like a N'Keal Harry, where it's like, oh, a huge receiver on the outside that just is going to be a bust right away. But then you look at the actual agility stats, that his overall athleticism, and you're like, well, just because he ran a 4.6, look at his athletic numbers. Like, he is an athletic big wide receiver. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he'll have any problems in the agility factor like
Yeah.
some other big wide receivers do. So to me, when I saw 4.6, I wasn't really surprised at all. But I was happy with the overall athletic numbers because I'm like, all right, this is what we're talking about here. This is what you want to see. So, hopefully they could develop him. And like you said, it's going to be really easier, I should say, for him to succeed at the NFL level when you have someone like CeeDee Lamb on the other side of the field. I love that pick. And like you said, splash. We've gone a couple seasons without the Dallas Cowboys making a splash pick. They've gone the safe, correct way the last couple of years,
Yep.
in terms of what they needed. So, we got to get back to these splash picks here. Forget all that.
They
But
always love splash.
I
Jerry
love
Jones loves splash.
now at 25 with the Green Bay Packers, it's always super tough to project where they go. Right away, this pick screams Graham Barton to me. But then again, the Green Bay Packers don't necessarily spend early round picks on their, offensive line. Could this be a change? It certainly could be. I really like outside the box picks for the Green Bay Packers here. And I'm going to make one at number 25. I'm going to go to the defense here, and I'm actually going to take a line if it ever will go. There we go. We're going to take a linebacker here at 25, and I'm going to take Peyton Wilson at number
Love it.
25 here. I think that this could be one of those crazy picks. Like, we didn't really expect Jack Campbell to be picked inside the top 20 last year. He went inside the top 20. Peyton Wilson, for me, just would be an elite addition to the linebacking core that already boasts. I always forget his name, the Georgia linebacker. I'm always Quay
Right.
Walker. There we go. I always forget his name for some reason, but Peyton Wilson and Quay Walker to me seems like an unplayable combination at linebacker. He comes with a ton of injury concerns. I get it, but his overall athletics and the way that he's able to close the gap and close space, especially as a coverage linebacker, I think he's a fantastic player, and he's one of those guys that, on draft day you go, like that could have been could have been a reach. But when he actually plays on the field, you're like, oh, wow, this guy's actually really good. So I might go outside the box here, but I'm going to take Peyton Wilson at 25.
I don't think it's. I think it may be a little outside the box for some, but look, if that's your guy and you're Brian Gutekunst, get your guy. And there are a couple guys every single draft for me that I enter the process I absolutely love. 2 years ago was Christian Watson that went to Green Bay. Last year was Tank Dell that went to the Houston Texans. This year it's Roman Wilson and it's Peyton Wilson.
Oh, very nice.
Look, I just realized both guys have the last name Wilson. There must be something there. But Peyton Wilson, I absolutely love. There are no injury concerns for me. There are no injury concerns for teams. He's checked out 100% medically. I think he is right alongside Edgerrin Cooper as the top linebacker in this class. He is someone that is going to flat out get after people. And for those out there, maybe like myself, that love throwback type of ball players in the middle of your defense that flat out want to knock your chin strap off and maybe look over you and let you know about it a little bit, that's Peyton Wilson and what he's going to be. Because look, it doesn't matter if it's September in Green Bay or they're fighting for a championship there in January and it's cold up there in Lambeau. He's going to be playing at full speed, chasing guys down from the backside next to Quay Walker. It starts at the middle of your defense. If you got fast linebackers, it makes everybody else look quicker on the perimeter. I'm a fan. I don't want to say fan. I love Peyton Wilson's game. I can't say enough good things. So I love that you went out of the box there and grabbed him there in the 20s.
Yeah, and I feel like it just seems like whenever there are some teams, as you know, obviously I'm talking to Ryan Fowler, of course he knows, that there are some teams where in the mock draft season we try and nail down because they're so unpredictable.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to think outside the box and you got to think, all right, what's the craziest thing that could happen? And a lot of times that does happen for the most part, especially with teams like Green Bay, where, for the past 10 years, we've been like, all right, yeah, they're taking a receiver round one, and they never do.
Never
And,
do.
So, you try and think outside the box. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here at number 26, and there's a lot of really awesome players on the board here for them.
There are, and I think it starts on defense for me. Look, I would have loved to seen a guy like Latu or Dallas Turner here, but I am going to go edge, and I am going to go with Jared Verse,
Nice.
lineman from Florida State. The back end of 2023 was sensational for Jared Verse. Now, if you ask my colleagues at Bleacher Report or the Draft Network, I am not as high as many on Jared Verse. I think he's a guy I have a high second-round grade on. However, when I look at his ability along this Buccaneers defensive line with Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey, and they're still trying to make it work with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and Logan Hall is still there. I like that fit because he's going to face isolated matchups early in his career. And whether he's bull rushing guys and establishing his hands early in the rep, or he's trying to improve what I've seen the last part of the year and work to the outside shoulder a little bit and then stick that foot in the ground and work to the inside. So that's something that's going to evolve in his game. There were some flashes in his game to where I look at it and say, look, there's just some stuff that the reason why you started out at Albany. That's some stuff for me in Jared Verse's game that I saw. However, the way in which he's evolved, the power in his game, the ability to play on early downs and set the edge in the run game, I think his best football is absolutely down the road. And living inside this Tampa Bay defense with Todd Bowles running it, he's someone that can be physical right away, learn with the guy beside him, and just be that impact type of piece. Now, I'll say this. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to have 7, 8, 9 sacks in year one. If he does, I hope he forces me to put my foot in my mouth. But down the line, I think he has the potential to develop into that. I just want to see a little bit more technicality, finesse, and the development of his pass rush repertoire for me to take him in the top 15, 20 picks where we're seeing him in this draft.
Yeah, I do like that fit a lot. And a lot of people, you look at the raw numbers and you say, well, why is edge such a huge need for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And then you see, wow, they were ninth in sacks last year. But then you look at the blitz percentage that they went at, and you're like, oh well, they had to get sacks with the amount of times that they blitzed. And also another guy that I like as a long term piece on that pass rush, Yaya Diaby is someone that I
Yeah.
really like as well. And you just keep adding these guys to a Todd Bowles defense, and you're going to get some real results. I love that fit there, and I feel like he really is the best player available at a position of need there. To be quite honest with you, I love that fit. We have the Arizona Cardinals here at number 27, and obviously, if we didn't go Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, I'd be taking Brian Thomas Jr. This feels, like that seems very kismet at that point, but
Mhm.
we have a receiver here already. Chop Robinson, Nate Wiggins, Graham Barton, Kool-Aid McKinstry are 4 guys that I feel like instantly could be impact guys for Arizona. So, which is why I'm going to go with Byron Murphy here at number 27, because Byron Murphy is, to me, would be just such an instant upgrade of what we've seen over the past few years for the Arizona Cardinals interior defensive line. I mean, they lost Likai Fotu. I think Jonathan Ledbetter is like their top defensive tackle, unless they signed someone. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think they added someone along the defensive line, but Byron Murphy just brings that unmitigated strength and athleticism to the interior that I think would just be so perfect in a Jonathan Gannon led odd front defense.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Jonathan Gannon specifically is a reason why I really like that pick, and the way in which he obviously was in the ear of Howie Roseman in Philadelphia when they drafted Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Tuli Tuipulotu. All the names go on and on and on there in Philadelphia. So Byron Murphy, I think, is for me my top IDL in the class in front of Johnny Newton. I would have loved to even see if it happens on draft day whether Byron ends up in Miami to not replace, but try to fill the shoes right of Christian Wilkins with
Right.
Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb on either side. But I really like that piece as a cornerstone type of piece there for Arizona.
Yeah, it's just, for me, I feel like you could just go so many different ways there, and to me, you can't really go wrong because the interior of the offensive line needs an upgrade. The secondary needs an upgrade. Chop Robinson seems like a perfect developmental edge for Jonathan Gannon to try and unlock that potential. I know, there you go again, Pat, with that word. He's someone that is just so explosive, but just hasn't really seemed to put it all together, in my opinion, on tape at a consistent level. But I feel like Byron Murphy is just the can't miss out of those guys, to be honest with you.
Agree.
And
Agree.
you have the Buffalo Bills at number 28 here. So I'm curious to see if you go in a different direction that I'm thinking you're going to go in.
Yeah, the new look Buffalo Bills, if we will, right? They're trying to make some changes. They got to, right? They just got to get past the divisional round and the buzzsaw that is Patrick Mahomes, and we'll see if they ever do. But look, I am going to go receiver here, but it's not going to be the name at the top there that you're expecting. Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, I like those two bodies in the building. A little bit parallel skill sets for me, but I think guys are going to compete right away. Love Dalton Kincaid up the seam. I think he was excellent in year one. He's only going to get better with Josh Allen. I'm not going to go Brian Thomas here. I am lower on a lot than Brian Thomas and his release package and ability to get off press coverage. I am going to go Xavier Legette from South Carolina. A guy that's, look, I was overwhelmingly impressed, is the best way to speak about Xavier Legette and someone in the SEC, to where they lost Juice Wells early portions of that year. And in the SEC, you're facing dogs every single week. You cannot take snaps off. And he was bracketed consistently for the
Yeah.
Gamecocks. And Spencer Rattler dropping back, and Trey Knox wasn't open over the middle of the field or up the seam at the tight end position, a name we may hear on day 3 in this draft. It's Xavier Legette or nobody else, or I'm tucking and running. So Xavier in this offense as their immediate wide receiver one, I think that's going to be a little bit of a group, a mishmash of bodies, but he's someone that I think is excellent over the middle of the field. The rep really starts for me when the ball gets in Xavier's hands. I think he's dynamic after the catch. Now, I want to see a little bit more improvement in his hips. I think they're a little stiff at times, but that's something that coaching and development is also important with these guys. But getting him in Buffalo with Josh Allen throwing him the football, he looks the part, he plays the part. We talk about bigger, faster, stronger. Xavier Legette crosses off all of those boxes, and he can also allow Josh Allen to say, look, we got advantageous 2nd and 2 and a cover 1, and that guy rotates over to Khalil Shakir, and I got a one-on-one with Xavier Legette. I'm going to throw that thing 50 yards on a rope, and Xavier's going to come down with it, whether the corner's on his hip pocket or he's 5 yards behind him in his rearview mirror. So give me Xavier Legette here for the Buffalo Bills.
I would just want to ask a quick follow-up question on that because I love Legette. That his last year at South Carolina, he was unbelievable. What was the cause of the struggles for the most part for his first 4 years? Like what did you see going back from previous tape that maybe would be an excuse for why he wasn't nearly as good in those first 4 years as he was in year 5?
Well, I think I can say, the evolvement of his skill set, first things first, right? As you get older, as you get faster, you get stronger. That's the basis of what I saw with Xavier Legette. I think obviously the volume and the target share is something that extremely increased there, right? In 2023 with Spencer Rattler getting a better quarterback flat out in the building there for the Gamecocks in the SEC. But it's someone for me that is just you constantly improve in the small things in your game as far as your hands. I love his ability to marionette corners as far as whether he's running a hitch, whether he's pressing vertical, or whether it's an outbreaker or an inbreaker, to where every route for me looks very similar. And I think that's something that translates to the next level. Now, it's not elite. He's not an elite route runner like a Ladd McConkey or really a Neighbors or Harrison at the top of his class. But I think he's someone that's going to create enough separation, and he's just so darn physical at the catch point to where it's going to make it tough for corners on the outside, to where offenses want to play inside out. They want to force corners to tackle. They want to force linebackers to cover. And if I'm tasked with bringing down Xavier Legette, 215 plus pounds in December, I don't want that to happen. So that's why I really love Xavier. That's how he's improved here in these last few years for me.
So 5 years in college, and this is obviously his breakout year. So is he getting close to his ceiling, or do we think he's just scratching the surface of what he could be at the next level?
I personally think he's scratching his ceiling. I really do. I'm not giving up on Xavier. I know a lot of people want to ask those questions. Why did it take you so long to break out? Well, at the end of the day, at the receiver position, everything correlates, right, to who you have under center, who you have throwing you the ball, and what he faced as well. Corners that are in his face, and you got a safety over the top. Those little things. I believe it was the Wake Forest game where Spencer Rattler has to throw it down the boundary, lay it there, and he dropped the ball, I believe. And I believe it was the Wake Forest game. But those are things that I expect to translate. The ability to beat a guy one-on-one down the boundary or snap it off, and the ball is going to be in your chest from Josh Allen. So if I'm going to add him to an offense with a young quarterback, let's say if he lasts into round 2 and I put him in Denver with a Bo Nix, I wouldn't like that fit. But a scheme fit right now with one of the top quarterbacks in the league, I do like that fit for Xavier. Again, as a 3-level threat that's physical, that I really do think. And the age stuff for me, by the way, this isn't Brandon Whedon. He's not nearly 30 years old. This is somebody I think has his best football, I think, is going to be down the road. And the big thing for me is the frame, the physicality, and with Josh Allen and the guys that are also there in that building will help him out.
Love that. And I also love his accent too. It is awesome. Didn't expect that accent from Xavier Legette. But 29, I have the Detroit Lions here. And for me, the most Brad Holmes pick for me seems like Graham Barton. But I think we're maybe around too early here. I think getting Kevin Zeitler is a nice 1-year stopgap for them after losing Jonah Jackson. I feel like they'd be content with that for now, and maybe getting someone in round 2 or round 3 to be that developmental guy that'll take over once he's gone. I'd love to add another receiver, honestly, but I feel like even after trading for Carlton Davis, even after re-signing a few of the guys that they did, I feel like they still need to upgrade the secondary here. And Kool-Aid McKinstry's still on the board, and for me, he's one of the smartest defensive backs in the entire draft class. I mean, coming from a Nick Saban defense, he's also someone that acts as a true quarterback of the defense. You don't really see something like that from cornerbacks too often. If you watch game film, you see him constantly moving his teammates around, positioning people in different spots. I don't really recall the last time I saw that. I mean, I haven't been evaluating prospects for that long, 4 years it is now, but I haven't seen that too often. He's super smart. He's really, really versatile in coverage as well. I think the Jones fracture scare is basically behind him. 4.47 was great vertical speed for me as well. I think that he's someone that would really, really upgrade the secondary for the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell.
I agree. And I also love what the Lions did in 2023 to where, look, we're going to take Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round and we're going to take Jack Campbell. And we don't care what you say. We're going to go BPA and we're going to get players that contribute because everybody cares the night of the draft. But as we get towards October, nobody cares. Are those guys competing? Absolutely. Did they produce? You're going to Brian Branch, right? Yeah, they absolutely produce. And the guys they took in the top 50 picks, 60 picks. So I love the pick. Kool-Aid plays a little high at me for time, something that I want to see him sinking his hips just a little bit more. But someone working downhill, he's got the hips to run as well. He talked about the vertical speed, not worried about the Jones fracture at all. I think he's a hell of a player, and he's going to fit inside this Dan Campbell defense perfectly.
Love it. Love it. Baltimore at number 30, a team that admittedly I have been struggling with at this point in the draft. Now that there's a couple of different options here that usually aren't in my mock draft, so it might be a little bit easier, but I'm curious to see what your opinion is on number 30 here.
Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun with this pick. Now, the two positions I keep thinking about are along the offensive line, right, at tackle or receiver for me. Because, look, I like Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar make up the rest of that core. I love the addition of Derrick Henry, right? This was a Baltimore team that really stayed quiet in free agency and decided to re-sign their own, like guys like Arthur Millette. But I either want to go Tyler Guyton here from Oklahoma, one of my favorites in the class, or I'm going to go receiver. And I'm actually going to go receiver here. And I am going to take Xavier Worthy. I'm going to take Xavier Worthy here from Texas. So, and the reason why I want Xavier Worthy is
I got to take Keon Coleman instead.
So teams are going to have to pack the box with Derrick Henry. It's just flat out going to happen. And you also have to respect the speed of Lamar Jackson, of course, who is one of the most dynamic runners at the quarterback position we've ever seen. But if you have a guy on the perimeter like Zay Flowers who's going to draw attention, now you add an elite threat, not just vertically. I'm not just drafting Xavier Worthy to be a guy that's going to say, just run straight and see what happens, John Ross. That doesn't work at the NFL level. He's an absolutely smooth and fluid route runner at every level, and watching him in the Big 12. And also in that Texas offense to where, look, there was talent everywhere and there's only one ball to go around. He was consistently impactful in that offense led by Quinn Ewers. So give me Xavier Worthy to expand this playbook, expand a defense, and as much as he is going to be a threat down the field and over the middle of the field and after the catch for this Ravens offense, in my opinion, I think he's going to help free up bodies from the box and make things just that much easier for guys like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on those designated QB powers, get some option out in the backfield in that Ton Munkin offense. I love the fit with Xavier Worthy in Baltimore.
You see so many different. I keep looking down at it, and I'm like, Keon Coleman. We were talking about Xavier Worthy, but one thing that separates from other guys that run like 4.2 and all that, like you said, they're not just out there to run fast. Like what I see from Xavier Worthy is on outbreaking routes, on even closer to the goal line, on those whip routes and everything. Yep. He's just so crisp, and like you don't see that change of direction from sometimes guys that run that fast. He is just an otherworldly mover, in my opinion. I don't care what he could weigh 150 pounds for all I think. If you run past people, they're not going to tackle you. So, he's someone that I absolutely agree. I think that, and he seems like a very Baltimore Ravens player, in my opinion. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because of, Zay Flowers and quick, twitchy, a good route runner as well. But it just seems like a very Baltimore Ravens pick for me, and that would just open up. But we could really let Lamar Jackson throw the ball deep downfield as well, like we haven't seen since Hollywood Brown really was there. So
they've added some speed guys in the past, right? Devin Duvernay and James Prochet. They tried to make additions like that, but Xavier Worthy is different. And even with the 40 speed too, when do you ever see a receiver on the outside align in a 40 stance and run a route? It's never happened at the NFL level, right? So I think you get a guy like that in the building that can just be an immediate threat, like you said, at the goal line, things like that. So I just think it's a fit that will help everybody on the offensive side of the ball in Baltimore.
I love that pick. And you've afforded me something pretty easy here with my last pick at number 31. Admittedly, I was probably going to go with Zach Frazier at
Mhm.
31 for the San Francisco 49ers. But if Tyler Guyton is on the board, I mean, I feel like I kind of have to take him. But at the same time, is he going to make an impact year one with Trent Williams there? They just re-signed the right tackle as well. So I believe it was a 1 or 2 year deal. I don't know if that's really the play here. I might still go with Zach Frazier, but at the same time, I'm just kind of going. I'm going through it here. Zach Frazier is someone that I feel like is, to me, the best pure center in the entire draft class. Where I feel like Jackson Powers Johnson's an amazing center. He could probably also play right guard as well. I don't see that really with Zach Frazier. I want to ask your opinion on that as well. But I feel like that would still be a really solid pick for the long term because this is a San Francisco 49ers team that past this year is going to have some super difficult decisions to make along the offensive line, really in general, in their entire team with a bunch of free agents coming up as well. Not a great cap situation as well. I think I am going to take Zach Frazier here, but I'm curious to see what you think about maybe in his interior versatility.
Yeah, I like Zach. I do. He's a day two guy for me, just as a primary center. I love his ability. Former wrestler, you know what you're going to get with guys like that. He's kind of that Tyler Linderbaum sort of role, not as athletic as Tyler, but someone that's in that type of role. Now, I personally would have valued guys like Graham Barton here or Tyler Guyton. The reason why I say that is because obviously Tyler lived on the right side, but then when Trent Williams, whenever he hangs him up, whether that's next year or the year following, we'll see, but he has the ability to slide over to the left side with that athleticism. So Barton and Guyton is probably would have been my priority there at
Mhm.
1-2, but you can't go wrong with Zach Frazier. And he's not a sexy pick, but he's just a pivot that's going to be there for 10 years and he's going to be excellent. Where you never want a young quarterback and a young center. Brock Purdy's been around. You have a veteran quarterback in the league, and Brock that's seen it all, playoff football. You get him an anchor like Zach Frazier along the line. I'm not going to complain about Zach. I think he's a hell of a football player.
Yeah, I really wanted to go Graham Barton there, but I just feel like Frazier kind of fits that San Francisco 49ers profile. Just, I mean, for me, just a little bit more than Barton. I feel like, especially in terms of, as a run blocker, he's just so nasty, and I love watching him
Mhm.
throw dudes around. I feel like
Agreed.
that's just something that one of the more fun aspects to watch of his game. But yeah, I mean, admittedly, Tyler Guyton or Graham Barton probably would have been the better pick, but it is what it is. And you, sir, have the final pick in this mock draft here. So I'm curious to see what you do here because there is a receiver on the board. I don't know if you go that way though.
Yeah, I am going to go receiver. I'm going to add more weapons for Patrick Mahomes. There, Kansas City's in a spot to be luxury, right? Not just because they won the Super Bowl, but they can potentially go BPA, whatever they think they seem fit at the end of this draft. Now, I would not be shocked if this pick, even though they brought in Marquise Brown and they already have a guy like Sky Moore, but that's really on the outs, and so was Kadarius Toney, obviously. So I am going to go Brian Thomas Jr. Here. Now, again, I do have a second round grade on Brian Thomas Jr. for me, but the ability of him to improve. I think the small things in his game, as far as a technicality perspective, is getting off the line of scrimmage. It was really nice to see him in that LSU offense where he's facing zone coverage, two high safeties, and they're trying to force everything underneath. That was fine, and a lot of teams weren't able to do it. But I love his ability over the middle of the field to put that foot in the ground and get open. And I think that's something that will work immediately with Patrick Mahomes. Because look, Justin Watson, and we'll see what happens with Rashee Rice. Look, they need a guy. They need a
Yeah.
guy away from Travis Kelsey, who's another year older, on the perimeter, a flat out dog on the outside. And again, the small things in Brian Thomas's game, they scare me a little bit. They really do. But I think those are things that you can work on here as you work into the first few years of his career and early in his career. And if you're a receiver and you're getting drafted, where else would you like to go other than working with a guy like Patrick Mahomes that'll make life just that much easier? So I think Kansas City would be extremely happy if I'm GM Brett Veach and I'm taking Brian Thomas here, round out round one.
Yeah, I feel like you're not really expecting that to be a player that's on the board at this spot here at number 32. So, I mean, like you said, they could afford to go luxury. We sit here every year and we debate, oh, they could have went offensive line here. They should have gotten a piece for the secondary. This is one of those teams, kind of like with the LA Rams. The last few years, the Chiefs have just been a team that develops late round picks almost like second to none. So I'm not even worried about those really problematic areas like left tackle or corner, really, because they could take anyone off the street at this point and develop them into a contributor to a Super Bowl caliber roster.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and even with Brian Thomas, I don't want to make it sound like I don't like Brian Thomas, but there are concerns for me with his game as far as just it's easy to separate against Vanderbilt, or Alabama or Georgia, but what
Right.
happens if you go on the outside in the AFC and say you're facing a Sauce Gardner that has 33 plus inch arms inside the contact window? Can you get off the line of scrimmage? And that doesn't mean side shuffle, release, get to the outside. Could you go through that guy potentially
Yeah.
if you have to? Things that I've seen from guys like Keon Coleman, I've seen it from Xavier Legette, those bigger receivers in this class.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. There is our full first round mock draft. I want to take a second to personally thank Ryan Fowler for coming on. If you guys are interested in any of his content, it will all be linked in the pinned comment below. So his Bleacher Report profile, his Draft Network profile, and the Commanding the Huddle podcast link will also be there as well. Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on, man. You were an awesome guest. I hope we can do this again sometime, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me. It's the best time of year, right? Draft
Yep.
season. Always best time of year.
100%. You said it best. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you again, Ryan, for coming on. Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.